Hey guys, welcome back to another DJI Avata 2 video, and this week we're going to be looking at flight duration, and it's only because I put on my community post a vote whether you wanted to see this video or the DJI Air 3 with goggles 3. But we'll probably move that to next week. I'll put another poll up with what you want to see. Stick around to the end of the video. Now, is this going to be another car wow-esque video, except this time we're doing flight duration rather than 0 to 60 runs. If you're new, hello, my name is Demetrius and I create videos on drones, photography and everything in between, and it's a mixture of entertaining and educational content. If you're already subscribed, you've heard me say this a ton of times, but it's because if anyone new comes along, I need to introduce myself. So if you are new and you want to learn more about the DJI Avata 2 or photography or anything else to do with drones, subscribe for future videos. Now, let's get on with flight duration for the DJI Avata 2. Essentially, for my testing, I went to a local park when it was a quieter time during the week rather than on the weekend where there's a ton of people. And I wanted to fly in all 3 flight modes. And if you haven't seen that video, you can check it out up here. So we're looking at normal, sport, and manual mode. And how long does the drone or the DJI Avata 2 fly for in each of these modes? Now, with normal and sport, I used the motion controller. And in manual mode, obviously I had to use the RC3 because you can only fly the manual mode with the RC3. So all the footage that you'll be seeing throughout this video is recorded at 4K 60 in DLOG-M and have been color graded using my LUTs. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, check the pinned comment down below. Also, let me know which flight mode you think will last the longest. Put in the comment section down below. Now, how did I test the video to make it fair? So with the motion controller, I essentially just was flat out in normal mode by holding the trigger on the motion controller and just fly around as much as possible, just keep doing laps around the park. It was slightly windy that day, but that's the day I was filming. In the real world, you're going to be dealt with different weather conditions, whether it's not windy and it is windy. This is a real world test. This is what it would be like if you chose to fly on that day. So there's going to be plus or minus in terms of duration. So in normal mode, using the motion controller 3, I was able to fly for a total of 14 minutes. And I came back to land as soon as I got the first return to home warning, and I landed with around 23% battery. The reason I didn't go all the way to 0 for my testing is because in the real world, you won't be flying to 0. It's always a good idea to come back when you get that warning, especially if you're flying a long distance. In the real world, if you are flying with a low battery warning, your drone might not make it back. So you need to come back with sufficient power with your drone. Now we'll go over DJI's claims just as I finish the results. Now with the second battery, this time I put it into sport mode. And again, it was the same thing, using the motion controller 3 and just holding the trigger down, flying around the park, around 100, 200 feet, thereabouts, just to try and drain the battery or see how long the drone will last at peak performance. And in sport mode with the motion controller, I was able to fly for a total of 9 minutes. And again, I landed as soon as I got the first return to home warning, and the battery percentage at landing was again 23%. I still think 9 minutes is a decent time flat out in sport mode. Now in manual mode, I was a bit of a plum here because for some reason I had it in photo mode and not video mode, so I wasn't able to record the flight. However, I was able to go back to previous flights I have been doing, especially with the freestyle video, and you can check that video up here somewhere if you haven't seen it. And I was able to find out a time with how long I could fly in manual mode. Now, having gone back over the footage and looking at the total time recorded flying in manual mode with the Avata 2 and the RC3 here, again, I was able to fly for around 9 minutes again. And as soon as it gave me the first warning to return to home, the battery percentage was around 21%. Now, DJI claim here a 23-minute flight time in a windless environment at a constant speed of 21.6 kilometers an hour, recorded at 1080p 30 frames per second from 100% to 0 battery. So that's DJI's claims. Obviously, you will never fly to 0% battery, and a windless environment can be possible. However, in the real world, you're gonna experience some wind. So DJI's claims that 23-minute flight time in a windless environment from 100 to 0 is a bit of a stretch. Normally you would be landing at around 20% battery when you get the first warning, so you get your drone back. Also, with my testing again and DJI's testing, they did say they're flying at a constant speed, and that's what I was doing too. However, I was landing a lot sooner at around 21% battery, and I didn't have a windless environment. There was around 10-kilometer winds, I believe. So I had 10-kilometer-an-hour winds and 26-kilometer-an-hour gusts. And the gusts only last momentarily, so it's not throughout the whole flight. Now, when we look at DJI's website on the specifications, we can see that the DJI Avata 2 has a wind resistance of 38.5 kilometers an hour or 24 miles per hour. So the drone could definitely handle the wind conditions on the day I was testing. However, that is going to reduce flight time. Now, in the real world, you probably won't be flying flat out. You will be using the motion controller or the RC3 with variable speed, so you probably get a little bit longer flight time. That being said, I do think the results are fair. They're pretty even. Like, normal mode's obviously going to give you the most flight time because it's at a slower speed. And again, with sport mode and manual mode, this is going to vary depending the way you fly, whether you're going to be at constant speed or you're going to be slowing down. Are you freestyling? Are you tower diving? Are you cruising? So now that we've gone over the results, how do you get more flight time with your DJI Avata 2 or with any drone really? Now, the first one really is the obvious one, is just adjust your flying style. Don't go flat out all the time. Go at a cruising speed to enjoy everything. You don't need to go far, 0 to 100 flat out throughout your whole flight. You want to cruise, you want to enjoy yourself. The next one is, if you bought the DJI Fly More combo and you have the charging hub here, you can use the accumulating power. So let's say you've gone on a few flights and you've returned to home, and let's say you have 30% battery left on each one. If you just use the accumulating power by pressing the power button, it will start filling up one of the batteries that has the most charge and deplete the other two. And that way you can get another flight in with your DJI Avata 2. Another option is to buy a power bank. So I have this one here, and I also have another one here. These are two power banks and are in the links in the description box down below. So if you're on the move, on the go, and you need to charge your batteries to get extra flight time, then you can just plug your charging hub to this or your drone to this, and then you can charge the drone. It just won't be a fast charge. It might be a little bit longer, but if it takes you an hour to get to the next destination, at least you're filling up the batteries while you're traveling to get more flight time. You could even opt for buying a fast charger. So this one here, Anker 120 watt power, and it has two USB-C and one USB-A port. Use this and it will charge your drone batteries very quickly, and that way you can get more flight time with your DJI Avata 2. And this, I've had this for almost a year now, and it's not just for the Avata 2. I use it to charge my cameras, my Air 3, other equipment. This thing is super fast, and I like the fact that it has 3 different ports. Obviously, you're not going to get 120 watts per port. It's combined 120 watts power. So if you have 2 things on charge, that power will be split equally, but at least you'll have everything charged ready to go. Now, another tip to get more flight time with your drone is to plan your shots ahead of time. This may be overlooked because all you want to do is fly, but once you're up in the air and you're dilly-dallying or you do not want to do, you're just wasting the battery. Whereas if you have some sort of idea of where you want to fly or how you want to fly, you can maximize the flight time available with the DJI Avata 2 and get the shots planned, whether it is the Avata 2 or a regular cinematic drone like the Air 3 or Mini 4 Pro or Mini 3. You could do this by, for instance, if you have 3 locations, you can have 1 battery per location, and that way you've got all the shots you need at all 3 locations. What if you have more locations than that? Well, maybe you want to fly the drone to around 40% in one location, and in the second location use another 40%, leaving you enough buffer left at 20% for the battery. And then in the other 4 locations, do the same principle with the other 2 batteries, and then you can use accumulating power or a power bank to charge on the go, so that way your drone is always charged ready or having some sort of power. Now, another thing you could do if you want to fly longer with your drone is just buy some more batteries. Yeah, it can be more expensive. However, maybe you're doing this as a side hustle or you're doing this professionally, it is wise to pick up some more batteries, and it is pretty normal in the FPV world to have more than 3. Normally when you're flying these types of traditional quads, people can have maybe 8, 10, just loads of them, and then put them in a LiPo bag, and then when they go to fly and do a session of freestyle, you have a bunch of batteries just to play around and maybe do an hour or 2 session of just flying. Now another tip here is to literally just check the weather, and I know that seems straightforward. However, some people just go out and fly without checking the weather first, and it may not be the perfect conditions. Maybe it's a little too windy and the drone doesn't fly as well, and it's a little bit more challenging to fly as you have to fight the wind in one direction versus another, shortening your battery life, because the drone has to work harder to fly against the wind, but you're going to have the opposite obviously when you have a tailwind. So just check the weather before you fly. Is it too windy? Or do you need to find another day that's more suitable to fly, where it's not as strong the wind and you can get longer flight time with your drone? Another one here is, how long do you actually want to fly for? Some people only want to fly for a few minutes, others want to fly for 1 hour or 2 hours. So that way you want to plan ahead of time, and that way, do you need more batteries? Do you need a power back? How much rest time do you want between each session, so that way you maximize that session of flying, whether it's with the Avata 2 or a traditional quad. And the last point here is, look after your batteries. Now, to prevent batteries from swelling, DJI automatically discharges them to 96% after 3 days, and then it discharges them to 60% if the battery is left idle for 9 days. And just note, it is normal for the battery to emit heat during this discharging process. Now, this is a nice thing about DJI because it's taking care of it for you. However, if you are flying traditional quads like this using LiPo batteries, this is something you have to do manually, and it isn't a whole nother ball game here, but we won't get into that. So if you look after your batteries and you're not always overcharging them, this will extend the life of the battery and also give you a longer flight time. So those are my tips and suggestions on how to fly longer with your DJI Avata 2 or with any drone really. If there's anything I've missed, let me know in the comment section down below, and do you have any tips to help with flying longer? What would you do? Also check the community posts, as I do post regularly there, whether it's to do with thumbnail voting or for an upcoming video. So this week or next week I should say, we're either gonna do the Goggles 3 with the Air 3 or the DJI Avata 2 at night. So let me know which one you would prefer to see next. And if there's anything you want to learn about the DJI Avata 2, let me know in the comment section down below. Also let me know what drone you're flying. Is the Avata 2 on your shortlist? Subscribe for more videos on drones, photography, and everything in between, and YouTube recommends you watch this video next.